What's up, guys? This is Derrick Bros with the Conscious Resistance Network. I want to talk to you a little bit today about a book called The Four Agreements, and I'm actually going to do a 5-part video series on this book, The Four Agreements, right here, which I highly recommend. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz, and it's called a Toltec wisdom book based on some ancient wisdom from the Toltec people. The reason I want to talk to you guys about this book is this isn't going to necessarily be a book review. I think it's a quality book, and I do recommend all of you reading it. But if you're new here, I'm an anarchist, so I'm going to be filtering this book through the lens of an anarchist and how it pertains to those of us who view the world from the lens of an anarchist perspective of trying to have self-governance and autonomous communities and freedom. And also, even deeper than that, I think this connects to the message that I write about in my book, The Conscious Resistance, Reflections on Anarchy and Spirituality, as far as learning how to reteach ourselves how to look at the world and unlearn all the negative baggage that we picked up along our life and becoming more empowered, more free individuals. And this book is really, really amazing on that. So obviously there's 4 agreements in here, so there's 4 main chapters, but the first chapter, the intro chapter, is also highly important. It's called Domestication and the Dream of the Planet. And I want to go over that with you guys first, and then in the subsequent videos I will go through each of the 4 agreements and we'll dissect those, and hopefully you guys can tell me what you think about that, if you've read these before, or if you disagree with what he says, because that's great too. I want to hear your thoughts. I'll try not to drag this out too much, but I've got 2 pages of notes here, one page front and back, on just these short 20 pages. If you're looking at the video, the book is very short, maybe 6 inches tall, and the pages are small, so it's 20 pages the first chapter, but they're really small and short. So I'll try to get through this, and we'll see what you think about it. So one of the first things he says in there is, in the chapter Domestication and the Dream of the Planet, what he means by that is he's basically saying that in our entire lives we're constantly living, like life is a dream, that everything that we see and hear is a part of a dream that we accept. We're dreaming with our brain awake, is what he says. And he says that the humans before us, those who came before us and those who, I guess, essentially indoctrinate us, our parents and authority figures, they've created a big outside dream. This is society's rules, beliefs, the laws, religions, government, etc. All these things that we've come to accept unquestionably, for the most part. These are what he calls the dream of the planet. And this is everything that we're made up of. Again, the culture, the beliefs, the rules, all these things that society accepts. These are, I think this could be connected to sort of the social contract of society. He calls it the dream of the planet. And then he also goes into the importance of our attention and how, as children, everything is trying to hook our attention. And he defines attention as the ability we have to discriminate and to focus only on that which we want to perceive. So just tuning your focus, your attention on something particularly. And he says that adults hook our attention and our thoughts through repetition. So we come into this world with all of these ideas on what is right, what is good, ideas about government, ideas about gender roles, ideas about the sexes, and all these different things that have kind of become commonplace in our time and place here in history, and we accept them for the most part. And you go through maybe the first 18 years of your life, maybe a little bit sooner for others, and you believe that the adults, the bigger people around you, that they must have things figured out, that they wouldn't just be filling your head with a bunch of lies and confusion, so we accept it. And they hook our attention through repetition, which is essentially propagandizing us and indoctrinating us. He says that we learned what to believe and what is acceptable and what is right and wrong. And of course, this goes into the ethics that we are picking up on our journey through this world as free, independent, beautiful human beings. Authority and competition, we're competing for the attention of the authorities, whether that's as children competing with our brothers and sisters, our siblings, for the attention of our parents because we want to feel that love. Also, he talks about the importance of language. This, I think, is kind of a big one right here. That every single letter and every single word that we use and that we see and write is an agreement. Right now, the words that are coming out of my mouth, they're being filtered and put into your ear and then into your brain, and it's making sense to you. It's because we have decided that the words that I'm speaking and the words that we speak are an agreement, that cat means cat, that door means door, that government means this, and things like that. And so we pick up these agreements, and we make agreements constantly with ourselves and with other individuals throughout our life. But as children, we don't choose these beliefs. We basically agree because we trust the authorities. And this is what is called faith. This is unconditional belief and supporting of those beliefs based on what we've been told by the authorities or those that we expect or believe will have some more knowledge than we currently do in our position as children or even as adults. This is an appeal to authority. When you look at somebody in a position of authority, and our tendency is to want to believe them and to trust them and know that they have the knowledge that we're seeking, and they must have taken the time to research these things, so there's no reason to question those things. It's much easier to do that to a child, obviously, than it is to an adult who has critical thinking skills, which is why it happens early. And again, this is why I believe that and you can look at the public schooling, the state indoctrination centers, and this is why they teach children through repetition and are trying to get them to become unquestioning adults, because they want them to accept what he calls the dream of the planet. Now, this goes a little bit further into that, and he talks about the domestication of humans. And this is great stuff here. So essentially, that information from that outside dream, he says this outside dream is not the stuff that comes from within our own mind and our own heart and our own original thinking. This is the stuff that was pushed onto us from the dream of the planet. The outside dream is conveyed to our our inside dream, and this creates a belief system. And of course, this belief system is based often on erroneous beliefs. He says the child is taught the name of things, how to live, what is acceptable behavior, and the outside dream teaches everything from gender roles, as we said, the religion, laws, all these different things, and also it teaches us judgment. So we accept this outside dream as our internal dream. We accept these things as fact and as reality, and we start to judge ourselves if we step outside of that. So he also goes on to say that children are essentially animals, that we treat them as animals, and that's how we domesticate them. This is another thing that we talk about in our book, in our chapter on the importance of the inner child. So this leads to a fear of punishment and a hope for reward, this punishment-reward system that most of us have grown up with, where a child is afraid to disappoint the parent, even if they feel like what they're being taught or shown isn't right. They still have a need to please, and they also want rewards. They want to be positively rewarded for doing good things and having good behavior. And also we have a fear of rejection over time, where essentially, so after we absorb this fear of rejection, we actually essentially become a copy of someone else. We're not who we are truly meant to be or who we were when we were born into this world. We come in essentially as an empty a blank canvas, an empty slate, a clean slate, and we can create the reality that we want. We can create the version of the world we want. But again, when we have this outside dream, this propaganda that has been passed down from one generation to the next, and it's essentially just unwittingly by our parents, I would say, and in other cases in some authorities that promote this type of thinking and this type of obedience, because that's what it basically comes down to, is obedience to authority. That's what they're preaching and teaching. People in positions of power don't want to change this. We may say we want the children to reach for the stars and to have big dreams, but essentially, eventually, those who are dreaming for trying to reach the moon and reach the stars and having big goals, those type of people typically aren't going to be unquestioning of authority and accepting this dogmatic belief system, this domestication of the planet. So after a while, we become what he calls an auto-domesticated animal. We don't even need to have the outsiders, the teachers, the authorities doing this to us anymore. We do it to each other. We do it to ourselves, because this is that peer pressure, that constant need to fit into the group and the collective and society. And so even if we feel like the things we're being taught, often in our lives we will continue down that path of wrong thinking simply because it's better than being alone. It's better than feeling wrong. And again, this internalized belief system, what he calls the book of law, this contains all of those erroneous beliefs that we have picked up along the way. This book of law, it rules our mind. We base all of our judgments off this book, even if the judgment goes against our own nature. So this creates, some self-judgment where it feels like we're wronging ourselves because we've internalized this obedience, we've internalized this worship and belief in authority and belief in the authorities' beliefs. It becomes harder and harder to really strike out on your own. And as a teenager, or even just as an adult questioning these things, it feels uncomfortable because you're going against everything that you've been told most of your life, and especially in those early formative years as a child. So the inner judge plus the book of law creates this system of victimhood, where we have blame, we have guilt and shame based on other people's beliefs. Again, these are not our beliefs that we have created on our own. These are beliefs that have been passed down. And we have a fear of disobeying. He says, the judge decrees something and the victim suffers. So we have this book of law, which is made up of internalized beliefs from this outside dream based on the domestication of the human animal and the planet itself. We judge ourselves when we don't follow that book of law, and we treat ourselves as a victim. So then he goes into discussing justice and injustice. And he says that justice is paying for something that you do wrong only one time, and injustice is paying for something more than once, over and over, something that you either have wronged someone else or maybe wronged yourself. But in the dream of the planet, he says it's normal for humans to suffer over and over and over, that we live in fear and we have drama, and this fear manifests in all of our relationships. He goes really deep into this. I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit forward in this first chapter, but he also talks further about the way that we make each other pay. He says, how many times do you make your spouse or your significant other, your mother, brother, father pay for something that they've done once? When you bring it up and you try to punish them for it, and it may have been years ago or months ago or whatever it is, and every time you bring it up like that, it's your form of punishing them, and that's a form of injustice, because then they internalize that guilt. Then he talks about the concept of in Buddhism and other Eastern cultures, it's known as Maya, which is like the veil of Maya, this dream that we live in, this matrix, I guess you could say. The Toltec call it mitote, which is, he says, it's a fog, a dream where everyone talks at once, and that we're living in this fog made up of these erroneous beliefs, this dream of the planet. Domestication leads to an image of perfection which we cannot obtain, and since we cannot reach this false image of perfection, we reject ourselves. And again, that leads to more of this cycle of victimhood, of suffering, and on and on. But he says it's possible for us to create a new dream, and to live a new dream in our own lives, to create something better for ourselves that is not based on others' beliefs, that is not based on false authority and a fear of rejection and a fear of striking out on your own. The most important agreements that we make are the ones that we make with ourselves. So as I said earlier, every word, every single letter, every sentence is an agreement. The things that I'm saying right now, you're hearing them and you're agreeing that the words mean what we believe they mean. This is a collective agreement between us. But we can reject those agreements that society as a whole has taken on if they don't fit in with who we are as individual, beautiful, free, independent, amazing, awesome, kick-ass people. So if the most important agreement is the one that we make with ourselves, this makes up our personality. We say that I am this or I am that, all these different things, and we agree to believe those things. So I'll personalize it for a moment. I've had a lot of trouble throughout my life having negative self-talk and making simple mistakes and telling myself, oh, you're so stupid, you're so clumsy, you're so silly, oh, everybody, they're all going to laugh at you. All these sort of, insecure thoughts and fear-based thoughts that over a while, when you tell yourself this over and over, you program yourself, you internalize those things, and you come to believe that they are reality. And that is a problem. So I have to choose to make new agreements with myself. So he goes on to talk about how it finds courage for us. It takes courage for us to break this domestication and to break fear. And that's what it all comes down to, is that these are fear-based agreements that we have chosen, whether consciously or unconsciously, to participate in. And by becoming conscious of them, we can choose to break these false and faulty agreements and then create new agreements for ourselves that make much more sense and will lead to more happiness. And this gets to the 4 agreements. So as I said, this is going to be the first in a 5-part video series, but I'm going to read you the 4 agreements here briefly, and then in the next series of videos we will go through them individually and discuss what they mean. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. The third is do not make assumptions. And the third is do not make assumptions. And the fourth is to always do your best. Now those sound very simple, and they are, and that's the way they should be. So we're going to go further into those in the next videos. But I really, I read a lot of material from anarchist, radical literature and history and philosophy to spiritual concepts and self-help, these type of things like the 4 agreements. And often I find similarities and a way to synthesize these two areas of thought that seem very different. To me, trying to find your own path to freedom and striking out and going against society that tells you that you are free, or that you're crazy for wanting more freedom, or that things are great and you're just some unhappy little kid who should accept that the world is never going to be perfect and you have to accept some injustices. So when you decide to go against that and to strike out on your own and to be an empowered individual and to find solutions and to find what makes sense to you, you do face a lot of backlash from society. And it's not just in the political arena. This is throughout our entire lives. Those of us who choose to be individuals and express ourselves through our words, our clothes, our hair, our ideas, there's pushback. It's easier to stay in the herd and to follow the path that everybody else is. But that's not going to be a path that is necessarily going to lead us to more freedom and to more happiness. So we have to remember to reevaluate and self-reflect on who we are and see if the thoughts, ideas, and actions that we take are really our own, or these things that we have picked up along the way coming from this outside dream, this dream of the planet. Thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel or the Patreon account if you're listening to the audio. Give us a like, a thumbs up, and tell us your thoughts in the comments section below. Thanks for listening. Peace.